Travel is my favorite. Travel is where I feel the most alive. Travel is where I feel the most like myself. Travel is my best teacher. Travel's a love I hope to pass on to my kids. And travel is completely different now. Okay, let's back things up. For the past 12 years, travel has had a very major role in my life. I have an internationally focused career and a long list of places I dream of going. But a couple years ago came a whirlwind of change. I became a dad. Then a pandemic broke out. Then I became a dad to twins. So when the pandemic first broke out and I had to cancel all my trips for that year, it made me really rethink my relationship with travel. On one hand, I just felt super lucky and fortunate that I've been able to go as many places as I have in my life so far. I'm a bit of an explorer at heart, so I know I'm always going to have all these dreams and desires to go places. I know that list is always going to be long, and especially now that I have kids, there's so many things I want them to see and experience and get a taste of. All that's been going on in the world since that point has kind of made me want to travel more, because, I think travel can be a great teacher of a sense of wonder and appreciation and just understanding our connection to other people in spite of all our differences, and man, we need that right now. At the same time, I find myself these days increasingly turned off by the sense of entitlement that is often attached to travel. When you travel, you're going on to someone else's home. So, it's not like your own personal playground. And I like to enjoy myself when I go places, so I've had to really do some self-examination to try and weed that out. Then there's the whole climate thing. There's no way around it. Flying just produces a ton of emissions, and we don't have a great accessible way around that just yet. Hopefully we do in the near future. I would love that. But in the meantime, when I go somewhere, I'm going to be thinking pretty hard about, is this worth it? How can I make this worth it? With Reese at 2.5 and Kai and Juniper at 5 months old, we finally got our chance. I brought my 3 very active kids to Antiuga, Guatemala. So when it comes to traveling, having adventures, and just doing stuff with kids, I've always been a bit of an optimist, but I'm a bit of an optimist for most things, so hey, at least that's consistent. But my mentality has always been, wherever you're thinking of going, they probably have kids there, so your kids will do all right. Of course, I know the reality of it too, and sometimes depending on your kid's age and what kind of day they're having, a trip to the grocery store can be a cool ordeal. But, until I actually go out and get this experience, we're just talking hypotheticals. So I've been calling this trip our big experiment, meaning it has permission to not go as planned, to go off the rails, to be wild, but we're going to try not to evaluate this thing all in one lump sum like it was all good or all bad. We're going to see what worked, what didn't work, and what do we know from this experience that we want to take with us moving forward for future trips. Because I'm going to want some future trips, you know that. First things first, however, we had to get there, and to be honest, the flight with all 3 kids was the part that intimidated me the most, more so than our time of actually being there. The flight turned out to be not so bad. The kids mostly slept, and Deanna packed a magic school bus backpack full of goodies. Airports were a bit of a challenge, though. Lines, standing around, security, all that. We landed in Guatemala City and got a 40-minute ride to Antigua. I probably overpaid for it, but I wanted this first leg to be comfortable. We got into our homestay, and this place was nice. I loved the outdoor courtyard, the balcony area. It looks like the house from Encanto. So let's start this tour. Starting out here, we've got the courtyard, and now we're gonna head into the kitchen. Check out those textiles. Love the choices for decoration. This is where we do work, eat some food, watch our shows. All right, back outside. Take a look at everyone's bedroom. You got Reese's room, Grandma's room, our bedroom, bathrooms. Now I love that the courtyard is the center of this. I feel like back home, our houses are centered around a living room, which is centered around a TV. I gotta go up these stairs. Yeah, And now here's the view, wait for it. Volcano. You know we're gonna have snack time up here. Now for these trips, I say don't plan anything for your first 24 hours. Let everyone recoup. We got naps, playtime, and by the end of it, Reese and I worked up enough energy for a little walk around town.
Where are we, Daddy?
We're in Guatemala.
Where are we?
We're in Antigua, Guatemala. So why Antigua? Why Guatemala? I mean, two of our kids haven't even been out of state yet. Why did we go international right away? Well, for starters, the location was actually pretty good. This is as close to home as I could have gone while being in a country I'd never been to before. For me, the thing I found most intimidating up front was the flight, and so having to only be in the plane for 5 hours versus 14 to cross an ocean had big appeal. Guatemala is also pretty affordable. It's cheaper than Costa Rica, which was also on our radar. I speak enough Spanish to make getting around much easier, and there's a good variety of things to do, from exploring ancient ruins to finding good restaurants, coffee and chocolate, visiting farms and spending time outdoors. There are a few things I was bummed that we would probably have to miss, like being able to hike one of the volcanoes or visit something like Lake Atitlan, which is super popular. But on the whole, I felt like I wasn't missing out on much. Also, the more I looked up things to do in the area around Antigua, the more I kept discovering some gorgeous, exciting, and quirky things to see. Like this one.
The world is not in your books and maps. It's out there.
Okay, I guess I'm just gonna record this in a hammock, but when this guy is asleep this well, you don't mess with that. I'm sure you've heard of or seen pictures from the Hobbiton set in New Zealand. Well, it turns out Guatemala has one of its own. We are in Hobbitonango. So this place is actually a fully working hotel and eco-lodge, but it's also perfect for a day trip. There are a bunch of hobbit shacks around that you can rent if you really want to stay in them, and a whole lot of bars, restaurants, taverns that have that Tolkien vibe. Oh, and it turns out the food here is pretty good. Say, you shall not pass.
You shall not pass.
Okay, but like with feeling with a stick. You shall not pass.
You don't pass.
You don't you pass. Now you can probably gather that I love the quirky and unexpected discoveries while traveling, so I love this. But, of course, there were bumps in the road, sometimes literally. So, in full transparency, we got a little mixed up on the service time of the kitchen, which tested everyone's appetites and patience midday. That had the ripple effect of making us miss our shuttle back to town, and so we had to hitch a ride back on this open truck. Adventure, am I right? Doing just about anything with 3 kids under 3 is pretty ambitious, let alone traveling to another country. So we brought my mom along, which was the right move. She looks after Reese a couple days each week anyway, and this trip would have been so much harder had we been all outnumbered. Good morning. Hey, so it's actually my birthday today. 32 in Guatemala. All right, what did Reese get me? My first time my kid has got me a birthday gift.
This is as good as wrapping paper as it gets.
Take a note, thank you first.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I like this book a lot.
Wait, you didn't have it?
No, but
It's all your own stuff.
all right. Hey, Reese, we can read this together sometime. Okay, so right now we're at one of my favorite spots in Antigua, Café Fernando. And now I'm enjoying churros con chocolate, and I'm in my element. This is what I love doing. This is this is it for me.
Say happy birthday, Daddy.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Daddy.
Happy birthday, Daddy.
Thank you, Reese.
How about Junior? What can you say?
Happy Mama,
out the candles. I'm gonna take a picture because they went all out and wrote my name and stuff.
Oh, trick candle.
Oh, okay.
Trick. Yes, keep blowing it out. Reese try.
The key to traveling with kids this young is simply to go as slowly as you can. We plan on doing only one thing every day while here, if that, leaving us plenty of time to relax around the house and enjoy each other's company.
Cheers.
This is a pro tip we got from a video course on traveling with little kids that we got. Get a place that has a balcony. That way, even after the kids are down for bedtime or a nap time or whatever, you can still like be on the roof or out in open air and feel like you're part of the city you're in. You're not like missing out and being trapped inside just because the kids got to sleep. You're still a little bit out there. Like there's a volcano right there.
Right there.
Moving slower doesn't just keep everyone well rested, although that is a win in and of itself. But it allows you to live a little bit more like a local too, even if it is just a bit. It's one thing to get a lot of photos next to landmarks, but it's a whole nother thing when you get to know the quirks of navigating everyday tasks. To me, that's the sort of intimate travel that gives a lot more insight. So my wife realized a little late that she did not pack a pen of insulin like she thought she did, which if she doesn't have, makes for a very inconvenient trip. She's really good at managing her diabetes, but she would have to basically not really eat any carbs, and that's a big bummer when you're on vacation, especially in a cool place like this. I was able to walk into a pharmacy, ask for her specific brand of insulin, and walk out with it 5 minutes later. It cost around $100. For comparison's sake, in the US, this is something we pay maybe around $45 for. However, here we were able to get that without insurance and without a prescription. This makes it a lot more accessible in Guatemala. Now, when you consider that your average Guatemalan has a much lower yearly income, a little less accessible than you might think at first glance, but still better than having to do this in the US without insurance. At this juncture of our lives, parks and playgrounds play an important role. In Antigua, however, most of the city parks are more like city plazas, benches and walkways, but not a lot of open grassy areas to climb or run around. Thankfully, Antigua had a great solution for that: the ancient ruins. I'm currently following Reese around El Convento de la Recolección, another old convent in Antigua before a lot of the city and a lot of the temples and things were demolished by the big earthquake. These are so cool to just walk around and explore, though. Definitely has the adventure vibe right on. All right, this is Daddy, Kai, and the Temple of San Jeronimo. Actually, this wasn't really a temple, it was a monastery, but the vibes are right. Well, the past couple weeks in Guatemala have been an affirmation of quite a few things. First of all, it affirmed how rejuvenating travel is for me. You know, in a lot of ways it feels like I needed these past 2 weeks. If I don't want to be as dramatic, I can at least say that the past 6 months of having a really hard time just going outside our house, going outside our hometown, and doing much because the twins were brand new was really, really tough. I knew that took a toll on my creativity and, you know, just kind of my sense of direction and everything. So to be able to be recharged, reoriented, feels good. I actually do have so much more creative energy that I'm looking forward to going back home with and feeling a lot more like myself. I am honestly nervous that for the next 2-3 years maybe, this thing that gives me so much joy, so much life and energy and nourishment is just not gonna come easy. I've already caught myself wondering, like, okay, well, where could we possibly go, you know? Those are my honest concerns, but when I catch myself there, I try and remember, like, that's part of the challenge, that's part of the growth. With kids, without kids, your travel experiences, your life experiences or whatever are gonna be so much richer if you can just be wholly there in that moment. And so every time I've caught those thoughts, I've tried to like pull myself out of there and pull myself back to right here, because right now we are able to make this happen, and that's the only way to do it. If it happened this time and it worked out so well, why can't it happen again? These temple stairs. Oh man. Whoa. This is the view. It's my last full day here, and trying to round up and do some of the last minute things I want to do before leaving, including revisiting favorite coffee shops, favorite restaurants. That's my big tip. Like, keep your last day pretty open, because you're always going to end up with things that, you know, didn't quite fit into previous days, or just things you loved enough that you want to redo. So how did was Antigua what you expected it would be?
I think so. Definitely walkable, but just because it's walkable doesn't mean easy. My legs are killing me. I don't know, it's a relatively safe, low-key place that you don't have to keep your guard up super hardcore. Everywhere we go, the kids are kind of minor celebrities around here. They'll be like, oh, geminitos, babies. But he liked the playground when we were at the farm. That was cool, the trampoline.
I'm happy with the amount of time here. I'm not like, you know, feeling like I missed out on a ton. But that said, I feel like if you have, the more time you have, the more slow paced you could go. So right now we're kind of in our last couple days and trying to get, you know, our last hurrahs in. And being able to like have a few more days to not have to rush those things would mean more downtime, more time hanging out at the house.
I would say we made a good move with bringing Philippe's mom along with us. You know, she was willing to come, thank goodness. So we had like one adult per child.
We're always going to remember this trip, except for the kids. They're not going to remember any of it. They're too young, but that's not the point. But you might be wondering, like, why even do this then if half the participants aren't going to remember it? Well, I think there's a lot of power in what you normalize and the expectations you create. And some of the things I want to normalize in our family are connecting with people across barriers, deeply appreciating human culture, celebrating differences and the things that make us similar, understanding that our own perspectives and everyday experiences are just one way of seeing the world, going outside our comfort zones. Adventure is a family value.